That I need to meet with.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Tuesday, April 10th, 2018. Everybody want to take roll to start with?
Gordon Perry. Absent. Bruce Pauley.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
Chad Kiger.
Here.
Lori Gross.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Next item, we'll have the approval of the minutes from the March 5th, 2018 meeting. Has everybody read them? And any comments or questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes for the March 5th meeting are approved. We have two items tonight on our docket. First item in docket number 18-10, Mod Harris requesting a use variance to allow the display of new case and farm equipment on a vacant parcel located at 1930 Indianapolis Avenue. The property is zoned PBO, Planned Business Office, and the Thoroughfare Overlay District. Ben, would you care to step forward and take over?
Absolutely. Good evening, board members. Walk you through a couple of details on this application, and then Mr. Bain is also here to fill in some details that I might miss. I'm going to go a little bit old school tonight, and we'll just use the overhead here. Just for by way of a little bit of background, this is a former gas station site that is just north and adjacent to the existing Bain-Welker property on Indianapolis Avenue. The building has been demolished, the tanks have been removed, and Bain-Welker has purchased the site from the previous owner, and what they're intending to do is essentially, with minimal improvements to the site, just essentially display some of their equipment, basically an extension of their lot that's directly to the south. And so because this is, I think we actually call it farm equipment sales and service in the staff report, that is not a permitted use in the PBO district, similar to their existing site, which is also in the PBO district, where they're requesting the variance of use to allow them to do that display, basically extension of their existing property on this site. Some additional background here. As I said, this is a former gas station. So as we all know, with former old gas station, tanks leak. So there has been some environmental issues with this site. And I did include in the packet, there's an environmental restrictive covenant from IDEM, which has some restrictions on how the site could be used and how it could be improved. So it basically says no residential use, no agricultural use, no wells, and you can't dig down further than 7 feet below ground. So there's some pretty significant restrictions to the use of the site. An additional deed restriction on a previous sale of the property also said that the existing asphalt that is on the property cannot be removed. There has to remain a cap on the soil. So there are pretty significant restrictions on really what you could do with this property at all. One of which could be just to park tractors on it. So that's what they're intending to do, and I will walk through now the findings of fact to read those into the record. Again, this is for use variance, so there are 5 criteria. The first criteria is approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. This variance is used to permit the expansion of existing farm equipment sales and service use will not be injurious. The use proposed by the applicant, display of farm equipment for sale, will not negatively impact the environmental restrictions associated with former uses of the property and will have no additional impacts to the neighboring community. Criteria number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The requested use variance will not affect the use and value of the area adjacent in a substantially adverse manner. Most recently, the subject property has been a vacant gas station that likely had an effect on the use and value, probably a negative impact on the area, so the applicant's proposed use is similar to their adjacent use and should not add any additional adverse impacts. Criteria number 3, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property. The property is currently zoned for commercial office uses, but with the various environmental restrictions, it's highly unlikely that any significant improvements could be made to the property to accommodate a use that's permitted in the zoning district. The applicant's proposed use will maintain the asphalt cap required by the deed restriction and will not impact the affected soils. Criteria number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property. Due to the environmental restrictions, the requirements of the planned business office zoning district will create undue hardship for any use on this property. The applicant is proposing use that will have no impact on the listed restrictions and would represent an extension of their existing use to the south. In criteria number 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the City of Lebanon comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan designates this property for mixed use, commercial, industrial, and the proposed land use would be permitted with an industrial zoning classification. This request would not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. Staff recommendation, City of Lebanon planning staff recommends approval of the variance of use request to permit the expansion of a farm equipment sales and service use within the planned business office zoning classification subject to the following conditions. That the applicant repave all gravel areas and reseal as necessary existing asphalt that currently exists on the property prior to placing any equipment on display. That the applicant install a 5-foot wide landscape buffer along the north and east property lines where the existing paved area is adjacent to the right-of-way. The applicant shall submit a landscape plan to planning staff providing 7 trees and 23 shrubs in this landscape buffer area. And just going back to the little site map that I've got here on the overhead, you can kind of see this represented. On the north property line, you've got the paved area doesn't go quite to the property line, give or take a couple of feet here and there, so they would have to add some turf area to get that to 5 feet along the east property line. As you can see with our recent Indianapolis Avenue improvements, the property line is now almost directly adjacent to the asphalt. They'd essentially be cutting out about 5 feet and adding some trees and shrubs. And we'll work with them on how they place those trees and shrubs so they can still get view sheds for their equipment for sale. It just has to be the number that's included in the condition.
I have a question, Ben.
Yeah.
On the north property line there, when it goes from the north side, the east side of that running west, how far west will the tree line go?
From the east side running west?
From the east side running west on the north end.
Basically along the edge of the pavement.
I mean, it won't interfere with the right-of-way that's there now, and
It should not. If they pull the pavement back a little bit, it'll be all on their property.
okay.
Along that north property line. Final condition, that the approval of the variance of use is limited to those farm equipment sales and service uses proposed by the applicant. Any change in use or increase in the intensity of the use by the current or any subsequent owners will require approval by the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals. So that just means that we're limiting it specifically to this request, so we don't get display of any other types of things for sale out on this property. We're just approving it specifically for this user and this use. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I got one question that I think I know the answer to, but so the lot itself is either going to be asphalt or grass, correct?
Correct.
And being that you are not allowed to park anything on grass, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Ben?
Good, thanks.
Okay, would the applicant care to step forward and go over a little bit of this?
Hello again, I'm Phil Bain, one of the owners of Bain Welker Equipment. As Ben described, my brother and I purchased the old Shell gas station. We actually put it under a different name than what Ben was saying because our lawyer advised us, since it did have environmental issues, that we didn't want to tie it basically to the other property. So we're calling it 1930 Indianapolis Avenue LLC technically. So that's how it's deeded. It's just a little buffer to protect us in the future, our families, and so on. So the area that Ben spoke about that needs blacktop obviously was where the gas tanks were removed. I think according to the environmental stuff, we weren't supposed to add anything on the grass areas, just cap the existing area where there used to be, gasoline traffic going to and from the pumps there. So we've asked Triangle here in Lebanon to give us a quote on that. We have not received a quote yet, so we're working on it, trying to get it done. So.
Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public meeting. If anybody care to step forward and express a concern, positive or negative, now's the time. Seeing that nobody's stepping forward, we'll close the public end of the meeting. And does the board have any questions for anybody or any comments or anything?
Are we good on this driveway? Is this driveway going to be removed, Ben? The one on the east side?
Those were actually just recently re-improved as a result of the Indianapolis Road project, so they would remain. And my understanding is, and this isn't necessarily a commitment, but the applicant is considering extending their farm fence past those to keep people from trying to cut through that property like they seem to do
So it
on
won't be
occasion.
used? That's good.
So yeah, it will only be used to get equipment on and off the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve docket 18-10 with the 3 items that staff recommended.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Kelly, would you take the roll?
Bruce Pauly,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Okay, it passed 4-0. Congratulations. Good luck. Sell a lot of those tractors.
There you go. Sell a lot of.
And
Take
one-
care.
One combine.
Okay, the next item tonight will be docket number 18-12. Indy Auto Imports LLC requesting a use variance to operate a used motor vehicle sales business at 1350 West State Road 32. The property is zoned PBC, Planned Business Commercial, and is in the thoroughfare overlay district. They were before us, what, 16 months ago, Ben?
They were in November, just in November last year.
Yeah, just a few.
Wasn't very long ago.
No,
Okay, you want to
and I'll explain why.
explain?
Very good. So as Mr. Pauly just said, this is a repeat of a request that came before you towards the end of last year, November 2017. And at that time, if you recall, we had worked with them to come up with, I guess, a temporary solution at this site while they investigated other site opportunities. We worked with them to kind of come up with some options that they could consider. And we did do that, and we came up with probably a half a dozen other sites that might have been possibilities, and came to a couple of different conclusions. One, every other site was also on a main thoroughfare that would require this same variance request, the same use variance request, because it was in an overlay district. And two, the sites weren't as ideal of a location as this one. So those were things that as they were evaluating sites for their business, this site had a much more ideal location from a proximity, visibility perspective, and no matter where else they went in the city where we have commercial properties available, it was also going to be an overlay district, so the same request is always going to be there. The other item that kind of added a hiccup to the ability for this to be temporary is the existing property owner was not willing to do a short-term lease. I think the shortest lease terms that he was comfortable with was either 3 or 4 years. So that didn't really mesh very well with our temporary 18-month approval that we did last year in November. Without having some protection of being able to be on that property for longer than 18 months, there was no reason for him to sign a longer-term lease on this property. And due to the restrictions on essentially all of our commercial properties, this use variance is going to have to come up anyway. So what we did instead is we took a second look at this property to figure out whether there were some improvements that they could make initially that would be acceptable to allow this property to be used for a used car dealership. And we've done that. And then the second piece of this is that this property right now does not have a maintenance garage, which they will definitely need in order to operate their business. So at the time that they come back in with plans for that maintenance garage, it'll require development plan approval by the Plan Commission and likely some variance requests that'll come back here. Because once they add on to that building, the whole site needs to be brought up to current standards, and there are just some limitations for being able to do that. So we will be, if they're able to get this use variance approval tonight, my guess is they will be starting to work on what those plans look like, and we'll be coming in, meeting with our staff and our office to determine exactly what that design needs to look like, and from both the architectural and site perspective, and then we'll come back to the Plan Commission and BZA as necessary to get those plans approved. So tonight was really just a consideration of allowing them to use this property permanently for a used car dealership, and what improvements we would recommend or would place as conditions of approval in order to allow that to occur before they would move forward with any other improvements. So that's what they've done. Some of the history of the properties, I know it's been vacant for a little while now. There was a group, Power Sports of Lebanon, that received approval in June of 2014 to sell ATVs and motorcycles out here. So this was formerly a restaurant that was converted to sell ATVs and other equipment. They were not in operation very long before they went out of business, and it's been vacant since then. And actually, the current owner is still the owner of that business at the time. So it's been vacant for probably going on 2 years now, at least, if not longer than that. And the building has been modified in order to sell stuff, which works very well for a used car dealership. What we have here on this survey is actually the survey that was done when Power Sports came in, and it's probably the best rendition of what the current site looks like. Have 2 cuts off of State Road 32. The building sits here. The rest of this is either paved area, or there is a portion in the very back of the property, the northern part of the property, that is gravel right now. So I will, here in a second, I will now put up a very conceptual, high-level sketch of how they would intend to use the property. If we can see it very well here, it's kind of, as you see, they would intend to do some display of vehicles for sale across the front, and then you just have rows of cars, which you would expect on a dealership lot. Around to the east side and north side of the building. They have dashed into the north here where they would propose generally that garage to go, that maintenance garage to go, and be an addition on the existing building. So you've got inventory along the street and inventory to the east and north sides of the building. What we have worked out with them, and it will be placed in the conditions, is that they would, right now, the right-of-way for State Road 32 is in essence right on the edge of the existing pavement. And what we've asked that they do is they remove 5 feet of that pavement, turn it into a landscape buffer, and then add some plantings to that area. So we've got a little bit of some planting area outside of the right-of-way along the street, which you really don't have on hardly any of the properties on that north side of the road out there. Most of those properties, the pavement goes right to the state right-of-way. So this will be an improvement that will dress up the front of this property a little bit. We'll work with them on the placement. It's really the number. We'll make sure that they're able to place those so you still have, again, the view sheds of the items for sale. The other thing you'll see in there is we've required them to either pave areas that are gravel and or reseal the existing asphalt, which for those that drive past, you can see that there's some pretty tall weeds are starting to go up and cracks. So we want to make sure that all gets removed and the parking lot gets resealed. So it's in good shape, and then we'll obviously work with them moving forward on the architectural requirements for the building and any other conditions we might want to place on the site. But for now, those are the conditions that we felt were necessary in order for them to get approval to use this site permanently. The other thing that they have proposed, again, for some security, is that they would place gates at both of the entrances in order to limit ability for people to get on the site on off hours. And then they will also have the lighting that's there on the site to make sure that, again, the site is secure. And you won't have people trying to get back there in the middle of their inventory. So that's the gist of the project, and I'll let the applicant come up and give you a little bit of history on the business again, like he did last November, just talk about what their plans are moving forward if given this approval. But first I will walk through the findings of fact and the 5 criteria necessary to prove a use variance. Criteria number 1 The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The variance of use to permit a used motor vehicle sales and service business within the Thoroughfare Overlay District will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The property is zoned for commercial uses and is adjacent to both commercial and industrial uses. There is sufficient acreage on the property for the applicant's inventory, such that it will cause no adverse effects to the adjacent neighbors. Criteria number 2, the requested use variance would not affect the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance in a substantially adverse manner. The area adjacent consists of like commercial and industrial uses. The proposed use should not cause any negative impacts. And the applicant is working with staff to provide certain improvements to the physical property to limit impacts as well. Criteria number 3, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. The property is currently zoned for commercial uses and has historically been a variety of uses such as restaurant and recreational vehicle sales. The site is well suited for this type of use because it has a large parking lot and is in an area of the community where other like uses also exist. If you head east on 32 from the interstate, you'll see other uses, although as he goes into some of the details about his uses, as a used car dealership, he has a number of services those others don't provide. Criteria number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. While the Thoroughfare Overlay District does not permit used motor vehicle sales operations, the district does permit new motor vehicle sales and service businesses which also clearly sell used cars. It appears the intent of the restriction and the overlay district was to limit substandard used car lots. The applicant's business, while clearly a used motor vehicle sales operation, does not provide significantly different services than a new car dealer might, and the quality of the operation is on par with those same dealers. In addition, I'll also point out, like we mentioned before, a new or used car dealership would want to be on one of our main thoroughfares, which are all in an overlay district, so this same restriction would apply no matter where a dealership like this would want to go. Criteria number 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the City of Lebanon comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan designates this area for industrial and or commercial uses. The proposed use is consistent with the future land use designation of the comprehensive plan. Staff recommendation, planning staff recommends approval of the variance of use request to permit a used motor vehicle sales operation within the Thoroughfare Overlay District subject to the following conditions: that the applicant would install asphalt paving on any vehicle display or storage area where gravel currently exists and reseal as necessary existing asphalt paving. Number 2, that the applicant would install a minimum 5-foot wide landscape buffer along the State Road 32 frontage outside of the right-of-way. This buffer shall be planted with a minimum 5 trees and 20 shrubs. Number 3, that there would be no vehicles for sale parked in the grass area along State Road 32. Vehicle stock would be restricted only to paved areas on the property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Don't think so. I think we're good, Ben.
All right.
Would the applicant care to step forward and go over his plans again? See if it changed in the last 3 or 4 months. Please state your name and address too, please.
Good evening, Brady Krieger, 4150 South 800 East, Zionsville, and representing Indy Auto Imports as general manager for 2.5 years at 969 North Rangeline Road. As we talked about in November, we're losing our site that we're on now, so we've been trying to find a new location to put a upscale used car lot. Don't really see any like that here, and we found this building and we came to you in November. Had hopes that the current owner would let us do a short-term lease and try to get our feet wet, and the current owner has limited us to a 4-year lease with the option to buy and is willing to work with us in the purchase process, which is certainly better for us if we can move into a new community and actually buy the building we're in. So we're not in the same situation that we're in now, losing the building that we have. Worked with Ben a little bit, and we're very open to whatever we need to do to change the appearance of the business to make it more palatable to the community. A used car dealer is a used car dealer, but it can be done differently, and we've tried to do that. I had sent some photos. If any of you have been by our site, we tend to represent a cleaner, better quality vehicle than what I've seen in not just the local market, but in a good radius from where we're at. And So we'd like the opportunity to grow into this community.
But you're still, same price range of car and
Yes, sir. We run, I mean, some of the lowest, if I get a trade-in, it might be a $2,500 to $5,000 car, a first-time car. Even those cars that are under $5,000, we put a 3-month, 3,000-mile warranty on. So the quality of the car is above what you'll generally find in that price range. In order to get a warranty company to stand behind it, they have to be. They run anywhere upwards of, probably our most expensive is in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. And we range all across the board with approximately 200 cars on the lot. Our average car is probably about $12,000 right now. And anything from Hondas and Toyotas to Mercedes and BMW. Handful of pickup trucks. That structure may change a little bit as we're a little closer to the country. So we may change a little bit of our layout, but generally stay true to the price range that we're in and the ability to serve a wide variety of customers.
any other questions?
Good.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, it's a public meeting, and we'll take any comments or questions. Seeing nobody wants to step forward, we'll close the public end of the meeting and open for discussion amongst the board if there's any discussion or comments. Since everybody's quiet tonight, I guess we will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance of use requested to permit a used motor vehicle sales operation within the thoroughfare overlay district subject to the following conditions. Do you want me to go ahead and read those? Read the conditions? I can. That the applicant would install asphalt paving or any vehicle display or storage area where gravel currently exists and reseal as necessary existing asphalt paving. That the applicant would install a minimum 5-foot wide landscape buffer along State Road 32 frontage outside of the right-of-way. This buffer shall be planted with a minimum 5 trees and 20 shrubs. That there would be no vehicles for sale parked in the grass area along State Road 32. Vehicle stock would be restricted to only paved areas on the property.
Okay.
And I would second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and we have Kelly.
Bruce Pauly,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Ben, at this point, they go to planning commission and probably end up back here with us again? Or
Yeah, I'm assuming it'll take a little bit of time to secure a design team and start taking a look at what they actually need on the property. But yeah, it would return for a development plan submittal for the plan commission, and if any variances are necessary, which my guess is there may be some because of the limitations of the property, it would come back here, but it'll probably be a handful of months before you'll see them back, I would guess.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I need to come back up and ask questions?
yes.
Please, yeah.
Make sure you guys can hear me.
TV camera can't see you back there.
All right, well, that's probably good. My question would be, it takes about 2 months, it's gonna take us about 2 months to get our license changed, to move our dealership up here, or to get a new license opened up here. The building process and planning process is gonna be longer than that. Is there any opposition to, without making plans on building the garage, if we have to have an off-site service for the garage for a time being, to us starting the sales side of this as soon as possible?
That's a Ben question.
Sorry, Ben.
For the record, in the microphone, yeah, that would not be a problem. You can go ahead and begin operations there, and at such time you're ready to bring in plans for the maintenance garage, then we can go through that process. But with this approval and with the conditions established, once they've been met, you can start operation on that site at any time.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hope everything goes the way it's expected.
Thank you. I think it will.
Thanks for coming to Lebanon.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other business tonight? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Before we do that, though, our next meeting is, do you have that in front of you, Kelly? We'll be back on the regular schedule, first Monday of
May.
May. Okay? May 7th. Okay, that being said,
Make a motion to adjourn.
oh, okay, need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Ben.
Oh.
I will not be here next